Chairman Sanders, I want to thank you for this hearing. I want to thank Ranking Member Cassidy, too, for participating in it. And I want to thank all of our witnesses for being here today. It's really a great time to be able to be with all of you and to be here with union leaders to discuss the important role that unions play in improving the lives of working families in New Hampshire and all across the country. I have 3 questions. I'd like to get through all 3. I want to start with you, Mr. Fain. You talked in your opening remarks about the historic gains that the United Auto Workers have recently achieved. And I understand, and you mentioned that soon after the agreements were announced, other automakers have boosted their employees' hourly wages and benefits. So can you just talk a little bit, and try to keep it to 30 seconds to a minute, about how union successes lead to improved conditions for all workers?
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think this goes back to, Mr. Mullen's previous comment about, talking, I think he was, I respectfully had to disagree with his comment about that, in right-to-work states, workers make more money. And I think this is a prime example. We bargained our greatest contract in our history, the richest contract in our history, where it will change lives. And, we set that standard. And immediately you saw Toyota, Honda, and now Hyundai changing their conditions, raising pay for their workers, and shortening the progression to get to full pay from 8 years to 4 years, from 6 years to 3 years. And we did the same thing from 8 years to 3 years. So obviously, that is a direct result of the impact of what we bargained for. And I think it even goes a step further. I think, during the COVID pandemic, I think people had to really reflect on what's important in life. Yeah. And it's not working 7 days a week, 12 and 16 hours a day, working multiple jobs. People want some semblance of a life, and they shouldn't have to work that much to make a living. Right. That's what we should focus on in this country. And I think people see that, and people want to be a part of that.
Right. People should be able to know what their hours are, work hard during those hours, but then go to their kids' Little League games and take care of their elderly parents and shovel their neighbors' walk, right?
Work-life balance issue. That's what we talk a lot about now, yes.
Thank you very much. Mr. O'Brien, worker safety should be a priority for all businesses, yet unions still have to fight for basic worker protections. Our country saw some of the hottest temperatures ever recorded this summer. Many cities experienced extended periods well over 100 degrees. This puts employees working outdoors at serious health risk if temperature-controlled areas or adequate break times aren't provided. However, during this same period, the Teamsters had to fight to secure air conditioning in delivery trucks during their negotiations with UPS. Mr. O'Brien, beyond the health and safety implications, how does lack of access to basic protections impact worker morale and worker productivity?
Well, I think it's the best example is what's happening at Amazon right now. You have a company that has the most OSHA violations that have to deal with egress issues over heat conditions where people are passing out, some are dying on the jobs. And that's the beauty of having a collective bargaining agreement that we have with UPS. There are mandates and plans in place to put air conditioning in the vehicles, make sure that the buildings that they're working in, the warehouses, are properly ventilated, make certain that we have safety committees that are part of the collective bargaining agreement that mandate and monitor. And UPS is a fine example where we have the least amount of OSHA reportable accidents because we do have those checks and balances in place that protect our workers.
Right.
It's not just a union versus non-union issue.
Right.
We think that we set the standard in this last agreement where we think every employer should adopt the policies and procedures that we were able to negotiate in this industry.
Right, and it improves worker morale. They know that they'll be safe in the workplace and that their health will be considered.
Well, I think if you go to a workplace that you know is going to protect you and be safe, then you know that you can have a long-term career there where your employer actually does care about you.
Right. One more question for you, Mr. Fain. Investments in workers and their families pay off for businesses. Businesses that provide paid family and medical leave, for instance, are able to better attract people to the workforce and reduce turnover, which saves them time and money. Mr. Fain, some paid leave benefits were included in the contracts that your union recently negotiated. How will workers' access to guaranteed paid leave impact the stability and success of the companies that they work for?
Well, we made us, we caught a lot of flack, a lot of laughed at and mocked, for some of the demands we put on the table, the 32-hour work week being one of them. And all this gets back to is having work-life balance. And, you know, the paid leave was a big issue, you know, in the birth of a child or adoption or certain situations like that. You know, people need time to adjust to that. And that's something we don't talk about a lot publicly now, but when these are all work-life balance issues, to me, it goes back to mental health issues also.
Yeah.
When people are working themselves to death 7 days a week, when they're working multiple jobs, scraping to get by paycheck to paycheck, this affects the mental health of our society, and I think that's why we see such an increase. So we have an obligation to give people adequate time to do those things. I mean, when you have a child, it's one of the greatest moments. I have two daughters. I mean, literally, when both my daughters were born, I cried for a half hour. I mean, it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And, you know, I had to take vacation to spend time, but, you know, so I think it's a great benefit, and management does that. Management already had that benefit. It was just basically giving our workers a right, but the managers are playing some majority.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.